Jim?
Sorry for the delay getting you in here. I know we're sort of up against opening ceremonies. We don't have as much time as we thought. I think they have the last 3 episodes of season 9.
Fate burning and Lyra Bonbon's wedding announcement. We joked that Cranky's got the op-ed, the letters to the editor, where he's complaining about stuff. Internally, that it would either become extra housing for the school, or maybe they would actually make it a proper library that was available to everyone in town. Did everyone pick up on like the symbols that they're putting on the boxes are different? Like one's applesauce, one's apple juice, and then that's why they get all confused.
That's just like on the farm.
I guess so.
Anywho, I really need to get all these boxes packed and sorted.
We're really happy to be able to do sort of an epilogue to the season, because at the end of that 2-parter, if it had just ended there, it felt like we didn't really have time to say goodbye to the entire cast and all the friends we've made along the way with the series. So, you know, when we pitched this to Hasbro, thankfully they were on board and having a bit of an emotional wind down.
Don't you think things are going to be different? Well, I'll be turning all the canon like Alice from now on.
And we've got a proper ending, yeah.
In 3, 2, 1.
This is also an opportunity to revisit some of the locations we've had a lot of fun with over the course of the series. There was some longer flight stuff that we had to trim down just because we had a lot of other stuff to get through in this episode.
Complicated. Of course.
The routine really isn't that complicated when you're complaining about it.
I don't have time to talk. They don't have much time to leave this house, but the other
It's amazing how much sort of extra effort has to be put into After Effects and things for like simple things like adding a touch of the glow to those strands of thread. Because
Starlight's supposed to come
Ernie
out.
says they glow, and so we had to add that all in after the fact.
You know what? I think you're right, Twilight.
You know, I didn't really know what
Sometimes it can be really tricky building these emotional sequences and not feeling like you're rushing through them to get to the action stuff.
All I can think about
But we knew that this was a pretty important moment for this episode.
It's terrifying. I'm
So
scared.
hopefully it doesn't feel too rushed.
Me too. Rattled to the core.
Yep.
I'm scared. No, we missed it.
So in the script there was some discussion of like the logic of like
Okay, we're on the train.
not really using the train because you can teleport here.
Exactly how much time
Why did Big Mac go in advance? And hopefully you guys didn't feel that watching. We tried to iron it out as much as possible. So shots like this are actually really difficult. Flash doesn't like tons of characters in scenes, so you know when you see that big wide shot where you give everyone, a lot of them are in silhouette to limit the details, and that's why a lot of them are not moving. We tried to put some reference to the movie in there, that's why Tempest is there. We tried to get as much of the major characters we met over the course of the series in there, but even that, I'm sure we missed quite a few. And I know in particular people were wondering why Lightning Dust wasn't there.
Ponyville, but things got a little hectic.
So this book,
Moving away.
we did these 6 clip shows. I don't know when they're coming out. They have these little wraparound bits that are about each of the main 6 trying to get Twilight to talk about her memories to put in the book. So hopefully one day those will come out.
That's the first time someone said it officially. We only knew that from the hack. Really? Yeah. Wow. So it's official now.
I never thought about friendship being something to work at.
So they're trying to set up the idea that the full moral of the entire show is this idea. I mean, it's in the title, the magic of friendship. It seems like we have to end on that. And then we knew we had to end with a song. Daniel wrote this beautiful song to wrap up that a lot of people tell me Scope told me makes him cry every time he hears it, so laugh it off.
It's like my favorite song in the whole show.
And then we were also wanting to use this song as an opportunity to show as many of the characters we'd seen over the course of the series as possible. But we didn't get to do as much with the Young Six as we wanted to in season 9, so it was nice to see them a little bit in this. And then Megan Willis, who's one of the board artists, came up with this thing. Originally she had this one giant pan of all the characters, and it was gorgeous, but there was just no way we could technically pull it off. So we brainstormed a bit, came up with this alternate concept where each of the main 6 runs through, and you get to see that characters that they've had the most sort of interaction with and had the biggest impact on their lives. And that's the one time Sunset was in the main series as a pony. And then, of course, we knew we had to end with a little bit of a callback to the theme song. Then, really, you can't end it without closing the book. So that was, we knew that from day one. That's how the last show.
Bit of time, so what time do we need to be out of here for the opening ceremonies?
You have your whole slot.
Okay. Okay, well, we can do questions if you guys want to do questions. Anyone have questions? Yes, sir.
So this is going back to the season 9, the finale.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite parts of season 9 was the dynamic between the villains.
Yes.
Was there ever any consideration to bring any other villains into the mix, like Daybreaker or Nightmare Moon or any others?
We talked about, one of the things we were trying to do for the longest time was figure out how the villains could corrupt Twilight, and Twilight could become a version of a Nightmare Moon.
We also know that from the
friends would have to fight her. But it just started to become kind of big and unwieldy, and there were, you know,
sorry, I'm
we were
not trying to
up
get in your
against
shot.
this. Hasbro was sort of waffling between whether or not season 9 was going to be 13 episodes or 26. For whatever reason, that's not stuff that they always tell us why they're thinking that. So that kind of had to fall away in large part because we didn't know how quickly we may have to wrap things up. But someone on Twitter asked, like, would we have thought about bringing in the Dazzlings, and it was just, it was already so big, the season as a whole, like trying to find time. We didn't have enough time for the Young Six. We didn't have enough time for some of the secondary characters that we wanted to explore. They really wanted to see more of the main six together, so I'm happy that we got a villain episode without the main six in it at all, because I want to do that forever. But it was tough as it was. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Ideas you wanted to do for the season of that scratch?
Yeah, I was actually talking to some guys earlier today. Originally, we pitched seasons 7 and 8. They were going to be so close together, we pitched them as sort of a continuation series. So we were setting up the idea of the pillars in season 7. And one of the things we were going to do was just introduce the concept of the pillars with those flashback episodes. And then the end of the season was going to be this two-parter where Twilight and the girls get called by the map to this area where something funky's going on, but at the same time, Starlight is called by Cadence and Shining Armor in the Crystal Empire because Sunburst has gone missing. And the idea was that it was going to be this clash between Twilight's team, and Starlight was going to make her own team of like Maud and some of her pals. And it would turn out that Sunburst had been reading about the Pony of Shadows and somehow became possessed by him, so he was building this body for the Pony of Shadows. And they would go to the area where Twilight was trying to deal with this friendship problem, so they'd have to fight over this sort of, because they're both right and both wrong. And then that season 8 would be all about amassing the pillars, totems to bring them back to fight the Pony of Shadows. But I think Hasbro, they never said exactly why, but at the last minute they said, no, let's just wrap up all the pillar stuff in season 7. Because we never had like a to be continued end of a season. I think they like to sort of wrap things up and start fresh the next season. And the movie was going to be in the middle of it too. That's right.
So, I know in season 4 you like redid Twilight to bigger.
Yes.
But from that point, did you keep making her a little bit smaller over time, or did you stay in that form?
She's always it's really tricky to do incremental changes. So it was always the same model. It may have had minor tweaks, but nothing major like that. Let's go way over here. You at the hat. A little further back. No, you turn around. You're turning around.
Mother's turning around.
Stand up.
Fine. I've always wanted to know the ages of the main characters, especially that finale.
If the finale, we never nailed it down. So I've always I have my view, I know Lauren has her view, and everyone who works on the show has have a range. I think there's somewhere between 17 and 21-ish, the main characters in the regular show. And when they're older, they're, again, we didn't really even talk about it. We just made them look older, so.
Put the line
I mean, I'm in my 40s. I look as tired as some of the main Sith. So maybe they're in their 40s. Yes.
You mentioned secondary characters. I noticed there were a few, namely this one, that wasn't really included after season 5. Is there any specific reason that they were omitted? Was it animation? Yeah, because I know they're kind of different as far as...
No, I think it's just as the world got bigger, the choices got deeper, right? So when we're rounding out background stuff in animation, sometimes it's just sort of left to the discretion of the layout artist doing that particular scene, and they'll put their favorites in. And, I don't think there was no conscious effort to don't use that character. Other than all the derpy stuff that I've already heard many times. We never got a request to remove characters. Wave back over there.
I want to ask about the show Bible. What about it? I want to ask about it. He's not even doing it well.
I know they would use that as a reference, wouldn't they?
I don't know.
The Grand Galaxy, yeah. Yes, very much so, yeah. We knew we needed... It was important to us to have a moment where things were just calm for them. Like the Donut Joe stuff at the end of the two-parter in season 9 was nice, and it could have ended there. But we wanted to have them have a moment where they hadn't just saved the world or were in threat of dying immediately. So that was the whole intention, not just that sequence, but that episode. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was easy because she had already been built for the first Equestria Girls movie, but one of the things we talked about with the Equestria Girls crew is they've done so much work with her as a character and broadening her. It didn't really feel right for us to steal her back just because she's cool now, so we wanted to make sure that was the character that made Equestria Girls its own thing. So it felt like it would be neat to put her in the show in a bigger sense in the main series. Yes. Yep. Yeah.
So, how far back does the actual lore go for the series?
There's no grand unifying document, if that's what you're asking. A lot of it is made up as we go along.
Okay, so what I was going to continue with that was, how far back did you, what other stuff in the lore did you want to write about that?
Again, there's nothing really specific. We didn't have time to come up with things that weren't going to be used in the show, so we would come up with things in the moment that needed to help move the plot forward. So the pillars were never a thing before season 7. Never been discussed. I was working with Joanna and Christine and Tim, who was the director at that time, and Denny. We were all in a meeting sort of pitching concepts, and it just came up of I like, DC characters, the Justice Society, there's a legacy. What if the ponies have a legacy? And there's a version of them from way back, and then that just sort of evolved in this thing, and they have similar kind of element properties, and then that expanded into season 8 where we added the new kids. So it all happens organically. I wish that there was I always joke that it would be nice to be like Lucasfilm and have one person who's in charge of creating a timeline and putting these things on them, because I think it would answer a lot of questions for people.
It's kind of like a story that the writers could write after the series is done.
Right, exactly. Yes?
Yes, considering how much development Liz got in season 9, was there ever any thought to redemption for them?
Redemption for them?
Yeah.
I mean, it was discussed, but it sort of had become a silly trope in the show that every bad guy gets redeemed. And again, because I'm a comic book nerd, I think it's important that you have bad guys that can always come back, that they're always bad guys. Like, Dr. Octopus is maybe good for a little bit, but then he's always going to be Dr. Octopus because he's a cool bad guy. So, there was talk of early on in season 6 of redeeming Chrysalis at the end of that episode, and we had to fight hard to say, no, she would not accept that. So, Yeah, it was just, it's like, do we want to do that? And it's like, yeah, no, we don't want to do it. So I think it was important, and that's specifically why we chose those 3 bad guys. So we sort of felt like there's not a ton of redeeming qualities about them. Like Chrysalis would never buy into it. So, yes.
All right, Lauren Faust told us, no, it is not canon at HarmonyCon, but I want to ask you your opinion. Is the Equestria Girls series canon to A Friendship is Magic?
I'm just going to defer to Lauren. As far as I'm concerned, what she says is the rule.
Not canon?
If that's what Lauren says, then that's how it is.
Yeah, she knew she was going to piss off a lot of people in the audience.
That's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. Lauren developed this show, and I'm going to defer to her on all that stuff. You know, we tried to stay as true to her vision as we could. I mean, obviously, we lost some fights with Hasbro on that, but you know, I always tried to look to what she had established with the show in terms of the lore. So if she says it, then that's fine with me.
Trying to start a fight back here. Oh.
We just they interviewed all of us. They came up for a couple days, and there was a lot more questions with me, and I think I got like 15 seconds or something. So they interviewed all 3 directors. They interviewed the producer and a few key staff members. I'm sure there's a lot more footage out there, but we only had 22 minutes to put it all together. You really probably want to hear more from Lauren and some of the writers than most people's fan face. Yes.
Were you disappointed at all that you didn't get to voice King Sombra again?
No, not really. I don't think I'm a particularly good actor. And we loved what Alvin did. It was so different and silly. So the way I justified it in my mind is that the version of Sombra I did was the unformed, ethereal, ghostly version, and then Alvin's version is what he really sounded like when he was real. So, you got a question?
Yeah, are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I wanted to ask, was it ever discussed whether Celestia and Luna had earned their wings?
Not really. Hasbro seemed to be a little uninterested in going too far back into the esoteric lore. As we moved on into this series later and later, they were a little concerned that this show became so lore heavy that it was difficult for new viewers to come in. So that's why even in season 9, which is our last season, pardon me, there's still so many slice of life episodes. You know, it would have been nice to tie up a ton of loose ends, but they really were like, we want to make sure that a kid who's watching this for the first time isn't lost. So, you know. Yes.
So what have you been doing since Friendship is Magic ended?
I took some time off, and now I'm working on a new show with a fair number of the Pony crew, but it hasn't been announced yet, so I can't say what it is.
First one is My Hartford Whalers, North Carolina Hurricanes.
I only support dead teams.
I'm gonna ask him about
Was there like
they had to do an episode over toys.
implied shipping in the last episode? Was there any that you kind of went into as a crew?
Well, a lot of the sort of implied shipping came from higher up than us. I actually, for better or worse, and if you disagree with me, it's fine, but I wrote an email saying, like, I don't think we should do this because the show's never really been about shipping. And I got vetoed. That's fine. That wasn't up to me entirely. So, but yeah, it's fun to do some. They were saying, like, Hasbro's justification for it was like, it's the best way to, in a short amount of time, clearly show that things have changed for them. And it's up to you guys. Like, we tried to keep it vague enough one way or the other, so if you like the shipping, cool, you can say that it's there. If you don't, cool, it's not there. Like, it's pretty nebulous on purpose. Someone, you guys haven't asked questions, so we'll go over here. Curly mustache man.
Was Discord making them grow by throwing them into conflict, making him kind of like Q from Star Trek? Did that kind of come out organically, or was that intentional?
It was intentional. The idea was intentional as a reference to Star Trek, you mean?
They directly reference it.
Not directly, no. It sort of ended up happening that way, but it made sense in a sort of weird Discord logic way to us. I know some people were disappointed that Grogar wasn't really Grogar the whole time. We tried to seed all sorts of clues throughout the season. He's got the same kind of chin beard, his eyes are the same color. There's all sorts of little hints all through the season. But we also didn't think it would be fair to introduce a brand new bad guy to defeat these girls, or try to defeat these girls at the end. It really needed to be someone who had more of a personal relationship with them, and I think it works better with the Legion of Doom guys at the end. Yes, with a scarf.
Yeah. Did you ever have any ideas of where Cozy Glow came from, like her backstory at all?
She was primarily a creation of Nicole Dubuque, so she'd probably be the better person to ask. We always joke that it's like has anyone seen that weird horror movie Orphan? Maybe not appropriate for everyone, but maybe she's not even really a child. So, like, there's lots of silly things we talked about, but nothing definitive. Yes.
Oh, me?
Yes.
First off, thank you and your team so much for the show.
Thank you. I wish they could all be here.
Before becoming Twilight's second in command and ambassador, did Spike ever thought what else he'd do in life after retiring the assistant life and that day ever came, or ever thought of his independence as his own person? Because he seems to be by your side, you know a lot, and thinks more about her than himself.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole stretch of time where any number of stories can be told about them there, right? But we were trying to set up in the finale where she gives him that medal, which looks a lot like the medal they give in Star Wars for her purpose, so that continues. And I'm assuming that much like the rest of the girls, he does have his own thing going on, but he is also this ambassador as well. Like, Rarity still runs all her fashion things, but still makes time for the Council of Friendship. Yes, sir?
Were there any character endings that you personally were unsatisfied with?
For the entire show? Like, I would have loved to have more time to explore some of the secondary characters and what's going on with them, but again, it was just not enough space to do all that stuff. Yes. Yes.
You mentioned that there was some shorts discussing the memories that were put into the book. Are there any, as of your fourth, unreleased bits?
What do you mean? Is there anything other than that? No. Yes, Pigwig.
What are your opinions on Pony Life?
Sorry?
What are your opinions on Pony Life?
I've only seen what you guys have seen. I have no idea what is going to happen there. I hope it's good. Like, no one, as far as I know, who worked on G4 is working on it, so I hope they just really get the characters, other than the voice actors, of course. I hope they really get the characters, and I hope it's a lot of fun. I don't really want to judge anything until I've seen a whole episode. I don't even know if it would be fair of me to look at it and judge it and compare it to what we did. So. Yes?
Was there ever any part of Equestria that you were disappointed you didn't do enough world building in?
Oh, always. I feel like as the show went on, it became sort of like The Simpsons, where there was so much depth to the world. We could have done stories about everybody and different, like, it would have been nice to know where Zecora came from and why was she there. We joked that she was from Girafferica. So, I mean, I feel like there's a lot more that could be mined. I hope that the fandom is running with those things if they're not being explored in Pony Life. Again, I don't know what they're doing with that, but yeah. Yes, sir. Again, we pitched ideas for Zecora stuff, and Hasbro was more interested in seeing the main characters and whatnot. I don't think that they disliked Zecora or anything. I think they were just more focused on that. Plus, those stripes were real pain in the butt for animation. If they're too close together, they strobe on screen, and if they're at joint points, like overlapping them, is really hard to track. Yes, sir, you in the back. Yeah.
At the end with the book,
of it being a full story from the back.
Yeah.
Would it be implied that the story is being told to someone or something like that?
You could infer that. What we were trying to kind of do is, and maybe we weren't that successful, but is to imply that the stories are always there. Like you can always go back and open that book again at any point and read those chapters and revisit those friends that you made along the way. And we also wanted to shut it so that no one else could do other things with it.
Pony life.
Apparently, yes.
No, do it based on finale. Because can you do it based on like the Brony them and also like their life? Because I remember in Toy Story you have where Andy was we were young too, and then at Toy Story 3 you have them in college. It's kind of the same thing where the main six, like they have their own different lives and stuff like that. It's hard to find time when we're older.
Yeah.
Like I was 19 when I first started, now I'm 29.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my own like work because it's hard to find time to hang out with your friends. You're like, sometimes you wonder.
I think it's more of a universal feeling as you age, and you know, we were 10 years younger when we started the show, or started working on it, and I think it was something that we were feeling because all of us who worked on it, we really loved the show and we loved the people we worked with, so it was a way to acknowledge what we went through as well, which it probably isn't all that different than what you guys were feeling watching it. We were a weird family working on it. We had people come back every season to work on it. So just like where is the future going to take all of us? Will we stay friends? Will we keep working together, or will life take us somewhere else? And so I think that's just a universal feeling everyone has. Yes?
Were there any legal issues or disputes over using the Pinky and the Brain reference?
Not as far as I was made aware of. I think it falls under satire.
Yeah, Rick and Morty one.
Yes.
So now that the show's over, can you objectively say like what your favorite season, episode, and like scenes to animate were? Like, just in your opinion. Like
I don't
what
really
did you
like
enjoy
to
the most?
do that because I feel like it's...
No, like what did you like the most? Is what I mean.
Yeah, but I feel like if I say like, oh, I like this one, not this one.
No, but like for reasons like for animating and stuff, like what did you enjoy?
Well, I didn't animate any of it. I just told people what to do. I don't know. I think.
Like which ones did you have the most fun with?
I think 4, 5, 7, and 9 are really great, and I think there are really good moments in all the rest of them too. 2 is really good. I feel like there's not really whole seasons that are less effective. I feel like there's specific episodes that are maybe less effective.
Like a certain one about parents.
I'm not making any judgment calls on anything. Yes.
So when you introduced Starlight way back, were you intending to be that like a recurring character throughout the rest of the show, or was that something that you just kept working on? You realized that she was a character.
It was more of a thing. We wanted to get Twilight to have her own student, the way that Celestia had. We thought it was a nice way to sort of keep the idea going, and honestly, it was a way to re-examine all the relationships in the show without it feeling stale. Because if we just kept telling the same old friendship stories, we'd be accused of just resting on our laurels and repeating things, which we already were accused of doing. So it was just a way of, we didn't know that it would, every season we never knew that we were getting more seasons. So we're just trying these things and like, oh, well, this character's around now, I guess we better include them more. Yes? Yeah.
Was she kind of the same thing, like she showed up?
Not really. I don't want to speak too ill of Hasbro, but sometimes they would ask for things and then we'd be like, okay, we did it, and now what do you want us to do with it? We're like, no, we just wanted a baby. So it'd be up to us to try and figure out how to move it forward. And some things we were successful at folding in really, really well, and I think that for whatever reason, we didn't exactly know what to do with that character to a certain degree, because she is potentially super, super powerful, like the Superman problem. She can just solve everything. If anyone hasn't asked a question yet? Yes? Someone over there not asked a question yet?
Hi.
Way at the back. There's a light right in my face. Let's stand up. Yeah.
How come princesses like Twilight, Luna, and Celestia are so tall, yet their friends who are the same age, like Twilight and her friends, how come they're shorter than her?
We need more room for the power they have inside. Really, it was just a way to I mean,
Alicorn.
They're alicorn, so they are slightly different in terms of their look. That was the way Lauren had established how alicorns look, so it made sense to keep them bigger. But for an in-story reason, we didn't really have one. We made up all sorts of silly things, but...
When you're a princess, you have to cut shortening out of your diet.
There you go.
Is she immortal?
Good one.
We're not answering that.
Yes.
Who was best pony?
Anyone else not asked a question yet? Yes?
Was it really difficult to include like the toy placements, such as the castle or anything crazy like that?
Some of them are tougher than others. So I feel like there's some that you guys maybe didn't even notice at the time. Oftentimes Hasbro would say like, "Hey, we're doing a swan boat." And we're like, okay, well we got this episode that's set in Manhattan. Maybe we can. There's already kind of a Central Park theme. We'll just put it in there. It made sense. Like, and we didn't. They didn't say like it needs to be on for 4 minutes. Just put it in there somewhere. Okay. And then that was fine. And sometimes the challenge was fun of like, how do we make this work? And then sometimes, you're stuck with an ugly castle for
For an episode. I know, right?
I feel like I put all my stuff in there. I got to do AJ's parents stuff. We got to do an All Bad Guys episode. I really feel pretty satisfied personally with what we did. It went on so much longer than anyone thought. I think we got like 5 minutes left. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I wanted to ask if you have anything to share about creating best gift ever.
Sorry, what was the question?
Best gift ever.
What do you want? What's the question about best gift ever?
Well, making the decision to create that holiday special and developing it.
Yeah, Hasbro wanted a holiday special. We're like, we already have like 3 Christmas-themed episodes. They're like, we don't care. We want a holiday special. So, I mean, because season 9 ended up being the longest season for us production-wise because the holiday special and those shorts plus these clip shows that haven't come out yet were all part of that season. And that was a fun challenge in the sense of trying to. We really wanted to make a thing that felt like the old holiday specials that everyone watches every year. So we wanted to have some. We wanted to not have as much of a barrier of entry for people. Like you didn't have to know any real pony lore. So that's why a lot of. Like you see Trixie and Starlight and the kids, they go away at the beginning of the episode because not only was there just no time, but we also didn't want to confuse the audience who's maybe coming to it as just a holiday special. Yeah. Any other people have a question that haven't asked one? You've asked one. Have you asked one yet? No, go ahead.
Did you do anything to say farewell to Flash? Because you were talking about all the problems that Flash.
The computer out a window. No, not really. But the studio is moving to Harmony now. Flash is not being supported by Adobe, and it's just there's still like Carmen Sandiego's done a Wild Brain now, and that's still in Flash. It might be the last one. I don't know for sure. But, yeah. Yes, sir.
Did you or anyone you worked with ever have to stay longer in a day in the studio than you originally thought you had to?
Oh yeah, I was oftentimes be at work all day and then have to go home and read scripts and do notes and at home in the evening or come in on the weekend to review boards. That's just part of animation life. Like the deadline doesn't change, and sometimes you just need to put the extra hours in. Anyone else? I guess we have time for like one or two more questions. Yes?
Yes, I like the way that the villains were like developed. Like through the time they were superiorly evil, and then all of a sudden, after they lost their lust, they were like Chrysalis was going crazy, and T-Rex was getting more calculative, and Cozy Bro was being Cozy Bro. When Lord T-Rex dispute with Discord, where Discord mentioned his father, King Vorak, where did that idea come from?
Well, it's a reference to the comics. I actually wrote in, started reading the script, I'm like, who is this? Because I didn't know what the reference was to, and it was explained to me. Because we don't always know, we don't get...
So the comics are canon?
Comics, so, that was from the writers. As a shout out to the comics. Anyway, you asked a question already. Is there anyone else who hasn't asked a question who wants to get one in before we wrap up? Otherwise, I'll open it to people who've already asked questions. Yes?
Quick question. You mentioned a little while ago about the you had some disputes with Hasbro over certain things that were included in the show, certain people in the story. Could you shed some more light on those?
Anything? I mean, to be fair, Hasbro was really, really great to us. They let us do a lot more stuff than I ever thought. And sometimes the things that we would sort of butt heads on would be because they have a different plan that I'm not always, and we weren't always made aware of. And they don't have to explain it to me because it'll be like, oh, we're doing some toy thing, or we've got these other things, and that's not relevant, and they're paying the bills, so you just do what they say. You can fight it a little bit, but you don't make an ass of yourself and die on that hill.
Unless your name is Lauren Faust. I know.
Nothing major, no. That just really, it was just as deep as it got was what I said. Yeah. Again, not really a problem. There was no fights or angry emails or any of that kind of stuff. Everyone was really, really great.
Did the treat was a free life?
No, that was something Jason and I had pitched to blow it up. We knew we couldn't kill any characters in the show, so we thought, like, what can we do to have some sort of death in the show? And then I think they saw that and were like, oh, this is an opportunity to do a castle for Twilight.
Disintegration is not.
Yeah, you have a question? No? Anyone else?
That's actually
one last question? Or are we done? Yes, in the back. Worst pony?
What's
YOC.
That was good.